Are you tired of the English Pokemon market right now and looking for an alternative? Here's a Korean Umbreon from Terrestrial Festival. It looks absolutely amazing, but how does the quality hold up? So this video will be a deep dive into the quality of Korean Pokemon cards. Quality is a very vague term, so I'm going to be discussing quality in these three categories. We'll look at print quality, quality control, and the feel. But let's go ahead and go into print quality. Now, in general, Korean cards will have a slightly deeper color, a little bit more contrast, and a little bit more purple hues. Now, English cards will be a little bit lighter colored, have a little less contrast, and have a little bit more in the green tints. Now, this will be mostly preferential. I've had a video on this in the past, but let's go ahead and take a look at some examples. Now, here I have the Cresselia art rare or illustration rare from Shrouded Fable or Night Wanderer. Now these are pretty similar, granted. However, you will be able to notice that the Korean version has a little bit more in the purple hues and will tend to be a little bit darker colored. I'll switch the sides here just to kind of showcase that a little bit more here. Now these are pretty similar, so let's take a look at some other examples. So here is the Charmander from the Obsidian Flames ETB. And the Korean one is from a special deck box, but we'll go ahead and see an example of how the Korean Charizard here has a little, or Charmander, sorry, has a little bit more in the purple hues. And then the English Charmander actually has a little bit more in the green tints. It definitely shows up in the shadows. Let me try to angle it here. And you can see here how the Korean card has a little bit more of a deeper orange, and the English one has a little bit of a lighter orange. So again, purely preferential, but there definitely is going to be a difference between the two colors of Korean and English Pokemon cards. Now here is an example where you can definitely see the color difference. So this is the Hisuian Zoroark from V-Star Universe or Crown Zenith. Now I did say I was mostly going to be focusing on Scarlet and Violet, but this is an example of some Sword and Shield era cards, albeit from the very end of Sword and Shield. But definitely a color difference between the two here. The Korean one, again, more contrast, meaning the shadows are going to be a little bit darker than the English one, and the highlights will be a little bit brighter. And in the English one, it's generally less darker shadows, but the card as a whole will be a little bit brighter. And this also highlights the difference where Korean cards will bring out a little bit more of the purple hues, and the English card will bring out more of the green tints. So you can kind of see that here. Mostly preferential here. I go back and forth on these two cards. So this is actually one of my favorite Pokemon cards of all time. And some days I like the English one better, some days I like the Korean one better, but they definitely have a different vibe. Now, the difference between English and Korean Pokemon cards won't always be this different. You can kind of see that with the Cresselia and the Charmander. They're pretty similar. I have other examples. So you can see here, the difference in the color is definitely not as drastic. Definitely still is a color difference. Again, the Korean one, you can see the hair is a little bit of a deeper yellow compared to the English one. English card tends to just be a little bit lighter on as a whole. Flip sides here just to kind of see the difference here. But these are pretty similar, and this is a more recent example, obviously from Destined Rivals, this one from Heatwave Arena. But in case you wanted to see a comparison from the most recent sets. Now next up is texture. The difference in texture between Korean and English, honestly, it's pretty much the same. Now this is the part of the video where I say Japanese cards are going to be superior in almost every category here when compared to English or Korean. But this video will be about Korean versus English, so let's go ahead and look at some close-ups. Now here we'll be looking at our Hisuian Zoroark. So this comparison here is going to show the texture differences between the English one and the Korean one. And to be honest, they're pretty similar. The cracked texture on the top right and the bottom right are going to be pretty similar in the black smoke, and they'll both have a radial texture that is in the middle of the card. And this next example is going to be the Leafeon V-Star, also from V-Star Universe and Crown Zenith. But here, similar story to the Hisuian Zoroark, where we're going to see very similar texture patterning, especially in the plants, and then the same kind of radial texture in the middle. We'll leave it on the screen just for a little bit longer so you can get a better look at it. Now this next comparison is going to be with the most recent set, Destined Rivals and Heatwave Arena. You'll see the texture here in the Team Rocket's Moltres. Now, like I said before, unfortunately I don't have a duplicate of this in Korean, but I do have the Cynthia's Garchomp. We can take a look at the Cynthia's Garchomp's texture, and we can kind of see the texturing is going to be on a very similar level. Now the actual look of the cards, like how sharp the image is and how the print is actually on the face of the card, I would say they're pretty much the same. I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a Korean and an English Pokemon card if it weren't for the color when it's drastic or the language itself. Now let's take a look at quality control. I have it broken down into two different parts. It's going to be print lines and also centering. Now this is going to be purely anecdotal because obviously I don't have very clear data on all the Korean Pokemon cards and all the English cards. But in terms of what I've opened myself, and I've opened quite a bit of both, I would say I've noticed more print lines in English Pokemon cards. Now I do have examples where I have print lines in both, so I'm not saying that Korean cards are perfect by any means. You will still get print lines in Korean cards as you do in English, but I do notice them a little bit more with English cards. Now this here is the Cleffa from Obsidian Flames. Now you will notice pretty obscene print lines on this card. Beautiful card. Unfortunately, there are some pretty bad print lines. There's some horizontal ones here too. I don't know if it'll show up on the camera. There we go. Like, oh my goodness, look at those print lines, you guys. Pretty horrible. I have a Korean Cleffa here just as comparison of what the card is supposed to look like. Very clean. No such print lines. Now again, I'm not saying that there isn't a single Cleffa in Korean that doesn't have print lines. Just wanted to showcase what the card does look like without print lines. Now here is a Korean card that has a print line. It's going to be right across the middle. Let me see if I can find it here on the camera. Now here we go. You can kind of see it over here. There is a line that goes directly across the middle of the Sandy Shocks SAR. Kind of hard to see. Maybe it's the texturing on it that kind of masks it a little bit, but there definitely is a print line on this card. Now, as for centering, I can confidently say English cards have the worst quality control when it comes to centering. Now, Korean cards are by no means perfect in this realm either, especially not compared to Japanese. Now, I can show you as much examples of proper centering versus improper centering, but who's to say I'm not just hiding all the Korean cards with bad centering and hiding all the English cards with good centering. I'm just going to go ahead and show some examples of Korean Pokemon cards that I've pulled. These are some of my bigger pulls, and luckily the centering on these are pretty sweet. Here is an Umbreon, here a little top heavy, but I would say it is pretty clean. Here is the Cynthia's Garchomp again. Again, clean copy of the card. Here is the Greninja, a little bit right heavy on this one, but still not super distracting. And then my most recent pull was this Vaporeon from Terrestrial Festival with, I would say, pretty good centering on this one as well. Now, I said I wouldn't show any bad examples of English, but here is the Team Rocket's Moltres again. This is my most recent SIR pull from English Pokemon, and the centering on this one, honestly, pretty distracting, I would say. You can kind of just see how thin it is on the right here. Still a beautiful card. Crazy that I pulled it. Haven't even opened that much Destined Rivals, but pulled this one here. So pretty happy about it. I'm not super into grading or anything, so it actually doesn't bother me, but I do know it bothers some people. So if centering does matter to you, I mean, of course, again, no guarantees with any language Pokemon cards, but I do think Korean Pokemon cards have a little bit better quality control when it comes to centering when compared to English Pokemon cards. I believe most all of the major grading companies grade Korean. I think the only one is going to be Tag. They don't grade Korean Pokemon cards as of yet. Not sure when they'll implement that, but I'm kind of looking forward to it because I'm not too much into the value of the Pokemon cards themselves, and I do really like the look of Tag slabs. So fingers crossed for that. But if you're into grading, if you're into maximizing the value of your Pokemon cards, Korean cards are gradable. Now let's talk about the feel of Korean Pokemon cards. Now this is where I think Korean Pokemon cards gets its reputation of feeling cheap or feeling fake. The feel is going to be where you notice the most difference between Korean and English Pokemon cards. So let's talk about the weight. Now, the weight of Korean Pokemon cards are going to be lighter than English. So I have here stacks of Pokemon cards that are not hollow. I want to get a base foundation of the weight of these cards just based on the card stocks themselves and not based on the hollow or the texture patterns. So let's go ahead, weigh these out. So this stack of 10 English Pokemon cards comes out to 18 grams. Next one is also going to be 18.1. And this next stack as well is going to be 18.1. So on average, English Pokemon cards are going to be 1.8 grams per Pokemon card. Now let's take a look at the same with 10 Korean Pokemon cards. Let's go ahead and make sure that we're all teared out, and we are at 15.8 on this stack. Take a look at this one. Again, 10 Pokemon cards, non-hollow. 15.8, 15.9 on this stack. And here we go. This one is going to be 15.7. We can average it out to 15.8 on a stack of 10, which means a single Korean Pokemon card is going to be on average 1.58 grams. So this means that the difference between Korean and English Pokemon cards in terms of weight is going to be about 0.1 grams. But the bigger difference is actually going to be in the feel of the cards. Now the feel is obviously hard to describe over video, but Korean cards are going to have a slight glossy finish on the cards, whereas English and also Japanese have a more matte finish. Now, I think this is where a lot of people kind of accuse Korean cards of feeling fake or being fake. They have a shinier feel, if that makes sense. You can imagine a glossy business card versus a matte business card. Now, this difference is mainly noticeable with common cards. Now, what I mean by that is they are not hollow, they don't have texture, but for the most part, if they have texture, or if they are like an art rare, illustration rare, the difference is almost unnoticeable. It seems like the higher the hit, so if we're getting into like the gold cards or like the special illustration rares, special art rares, those cards you genuinely can't tell the difference, at least on the front of the card. The back of the card will still maintain that slight glossy feel for Korean and a matte feel for the English. This is also, again, preferential. I think if you've grown up with English Pokemon cards, it can feel a little jarring when you handle Korean Pokemon cards. But coming from someone who's opened up quite a bit of both, once you put a sleeve on it, it really doesn't matter anyways. And if it goes into a binder, it especially doesn't matter. So I think the previous discussed topics are a little bit of more importance. But the difference in feel is definitely there. So make sure you get your hands on some Korean Pokemon cards before you decide to really invest into it and decide if the feel is for you. If not, it's your decision, totally up to you. Korean cards might feel a little different, but when it comes to the overall quality, Korean cards are at least on par with English cards. And then you factor in the price and the guaranteed hit rates in Korean booster boxes, and the value is off the charts. It's honestly a way better value opening up Korean Pokemon cards. So if you're looking for the best bang for your buck in this hobby, I really do think Korean Pokemon cards are the way to go. Now, if you're interested in more Korean Pokemon card content, please subscribe, check out the channel. I have a ton of openings of Korean booster boxes of almost every Scarlet and Violet set. Now, if you're interested in buying Korean Pokemon cards, I do have a store, PokecoreTCG.com. Now you can find better deals on like eBay and things like that, but if you want quick shipping, I ship out from the US and pretty fair prices, I would say, but feel free to check it out. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you all on the next one.